Okay, here we are. Welcome back, and we are going to take you on a little tour of the greatest calamity in the history, the known history of the planet Earth. There may have been some worse. I don't know how we escaped this as long as we did, frankly, but it happened at the worst place, at the worst time, under the worst set of circumstances you can imagine, and we are paying dearly for it, and we're going to pay for thousands and thousands of years. That's the truth, and that's the sad story of Fukushima Daiichi. All right, standing by to talk to us about this is the former editor of the Japan Times Weekend Edition, Yoichi Shimatsu, who is kind enough to generate a tremendous amount of information for us all the time from a variety of subjects, actually. And if you look on the left-hand side of the home page, you'll find his columnists box, and you can look at the archive of all of his articles. And what are you doing in Thailand right now?
Well, I'm in Bangkok. I'm meeting up with some friends who are down here. Bangkok, for once, is not very crowded. Not a lot of tour buses. So the air is fairly clean. It's quite pleasant here, except for the fact of this bombing that occurred at the shrine that I've written about. And just yesterday, the Bangkok police reported they traced around the shrine, just before the bomb blast went off, they traced mobile phone calls, and they traced 3 of those calls to roaming phone number, roaming phone number, SIM card from Turkey. And the other thing I noted in this article that I wrote for you is that in May, 3 months before this, 3.5 months before this attack, 8 Israelis, IDF, Israeli Defense Force soldiers, were caught across the street from the shrine doing electronic monitoring at the National Police Headquarters there. The Bangkok Police Headquarters, right across from the shrine. And they were tampering with trying to, hack into some of the wireless phone systems. And so the Thai army had to send over some troops, and they were detained. And they had to leave the country. So this is a very complex group of forces here. Israel and Turkey are very, very close together. The government, there's a very, very high concentration of people whose ancestry is Jewish inside the Turkish government, and it's special intelligence forces. And these were the people who were all involved in that Operation Gladio, which created this group called the Grey Wolves, which has caused mayhem and havoc and murder all over, from places like Azerbaijan, in Bosnia, Montenegro, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, wherever you have terrorism, you have, people fomenting this senseless violence, and also in Xinjiang, where the Uyghurs are coming from. So apparently this is a large international network. The U.S. Embassy seems to be in total denial. The top Defense Department analyst for terrorism in Southeast Asia, his name is Zachary Bouza, also a Jewish person, is in total denial of everything that the Thai government has come up with about this, the Middle Eastern, this whole network of people that he studies, right?
Yeah.
So very, very interesting, this convergence of forces that we see also in ISIS. Yeah, we see this repeatedly again and again. 9/11 attack, Afghanistan. You see these same players reappearing time and again wherever there's these acts of terrorist violence. The same state sponsors are behind that. And it happened here to very innocent people, tourists in Thailand, and they found explosives. Now they found apartments, Complex 5 apartments where these guys apparently were. And they traced the movement. And I traced the guy's movements, and it all links to this network that goes ultimately to Indonesia and across to the Middle East, And by the way, during the Thailand tsunami, very similar patterns. I was there very, very early because I was teaching then in a college down in towards the south of Thailand, and got down there and did a lot of rescue work. But I noticed when I was there at the tsunami, at all the places, all the temples where they were collecting the bodies in little body bags, Very few children's bodies. The children float. They tend to, in tsunami, children actually tend to come out. You find a lot of orphans because they float. They have better flotation. You know, the fat content, they're smaller. So they get pushed up by the weight and thrown on land. But there were 200 Swedish children there. And I said, we have not found one single Caucasian child in all of these centers I visited. Not one. Yeah,
that's kind of weird.
Swedish kids were found. Yeah. And Swedish press asked me, what do you think happened to them? I said, you got to understand, along this coast, this is people smuggling territory. You have child sex traders, organ traders, and all. These are the people who do transport. You just cargo to them. They don't ask questions. They do cargo. Send it down Malaysia, Indonesia. Probably went to Malaysia, Indonesia, fast boat to Africa, the Middle East, where they'll turn up 20 years later, these kids, blonde kids in that part of the world, okay, who were blind.
If they're allowed to live that long.
If they're not, but they're high valuable cargo for some people, if you're running, prostitution rings and all that. So So basically, this network has been placed, and after I told the Swedish press, they went to the consul, and 2 days later, there was a cholera scare, and all the European countries said, your relatives from Europe should not come to Thailand because you might get cholera. There was zero cholera. There was hardly any disease because the seawater was killing any kind of, corpses were bloated, but there was no disease because of the seawater. I flooded the whole area, started killing the possibility of disease. So so many volunteers and workers, they would wear masks just for the smell, but afterwards you take the mask off, and people were eating sandwiches and bowls of noodles right next to the morgue, because
oh my, all right,
So this is basically was a huge scare by the diplomatic corps because they didn't want to tell people, and I did tell the press, look, they have sex with children, Now suddenly Swedish kids are up for sale. And you're panicked. I said, what is the surprise here? What is the surprise? You send thousands of people here to have sex with children, underage kids, and now you lose 200.
They have tours.
This is happening to you. I said, right? It's ridiculous. What kind of, who pays for all this stuff? It's a cruel world. People pay for the worst sort of things, and it says something about the elites of this world.
It does say a lot about them.
After all these years after Fukushima, Sweden's finally talking about going non-nuclear. What took so long?
It took 4.5 years. 4.5 years.
Places like Fukushima can happen everywhere else. Fukushima is contaminating the rest of the world, and only, I think in the last few months, couple of months, people around the world are starting to take notice of the radiation off the coast of California. I mean, it's been so obvious for years. What is taking people so long to understand we live in a very small world?
And getting smaller all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah, especially over there where you are, where even Kim Buechler with the Woods Hole project went down to Del Mar and said, oh my gosh, there's Fukushima radiation on them. And notice he took the readings in the water.
He did. I missed that. That's not very scientific. No. I didn't see that.
The concentrations are in the fog, that fog belt above the water, right? The radiation radioactive turns to a fog belt.
The marine layer.
Inshore. Exactly the point. It's not so much in the liquid water in the ocean. It is an active thing on the surface of the ocean. So, again, kind of a myth. I mean, while it's good that they're finally starting to miss the California coast and getting radioactive from Fukushima. I mean, and then I was out there a couple of years ago, showing this.
You need to come back pretty soon.
Yeah, later. We have all these problems with Fukushima over here, and then the government that's trying to remilitarize Japan. I mean, the whole situation is getting worse. And as I told you last week, this Shinzo Abe apparently is dying from internal bleeding.
Has that made the papers yet at all? Even whispers?
Well, I think that's why people are starting to come out against him. They realize
he's a real lame duck. He's a dying duck.
They got to come out because but the problem is they realize that a dying man would not hesitate to take the rest of the world with him if he's crazy and megalomaniac like this fellow is.
True. Yeah.
they're starting to realize, like there's nothing worse than a dying prophet who wants the whole world to die with him, or a dying king. That was an old Asian tradition, right? When the king dies,
take him down with you.
All his concubines, his horses, his dogs all get slaughtered and join him in death. So there is this kind of ancient cultural, very sick kind of ancient cultural stuff that. And unfortunately, he is one of these cultists who is into it. He comes out of this whole complex of Unification Church, Om Shin Rikyo, Sukyo Maikari, this cult complex, which sort of has these connections to these ancient myths, and so it's a very sick situation. So people are protesting. So that's good, but I'm not sure where it's going to go. That typhoon did not do it head on to that reactor in the one that was restarted in Fukushima. It hit Kumamoto, which is a very active volcano area, Mount Aso. It's got about 50 different hotspots on that. But at the same time, they had to do a check, right? Before that typhoon came in, they had to do a safety check. They found the condensers are leaking. Very similar to the problems at San Onofre. You use fresh water to cool the steam. Basically, you need fresh water to cool the steam, that generates steam, and also to cool it. But then there's a heat transfer process to seawater. So the seawater takes the heat, supposedly without the radionuclides, to the ocean.
Right.
Many of the condensers are cracked. In other words, there's radiation coming out of the Kagoshima plant. If your condensers are cracked, you have crack pipes, basically, from the heat expansion and contraction that's constant in a nuclear plant. So we got, obviously, radiation leakage coming out of the plant they restarted. This is like in just a couple of weeks after the restart, it's already leaking into the sea. It's another San Onofre. So, it's like, how stupid do these people have to be? I mean, it's how destructive, how unscientific are these people? Then the latest report, I'm not a huge fan of the Fukushima Diaries, but they did run a very good report. Tokyo Ueno Zoo, the ptarmigans, the rock ptarmigans. These are the little birds that...
Oh, they're cute birds.
On top of the alpine mountains.
Yeah.
They're quite... They turn snow white in the winter. Very cute little clucking things, and I see them. You see them in the Everest now, but we have lots of them in Japan, high up in the Alps. Well, there's some at the Tokyo Zoo. They've been dying off, and
oh, really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they're bleeding out of their hearts. Their hearts, their blood.
Oh no! So it's down at ground level. It's starting to manifest in Tokyo after 4.5 years. It's concentrated. It's building up. It's accumulating.
Exactly. Well, it's in their food supply. It's in their water. The Tokyo water is radioactive, and it's in their air. So they're getting it, and so the internal organs are bleeding. And this is exactly the same symptoms. Remember, we talked about problems in the internal organs, where basically your very, very little arteries and veins, they start to coagulate. The blood sort of dies in the smallest of your, and it cannot pass through the smallest passages in your blood system, in your circulatory system. So that's what happened in birds. And an interesting note is there's been a spate of large mammal deaths at Tokyo's main zoo, at the Ueno Zoo, in recent months. A spate of deaths of large mammals.
Such as?
So in other words, just like the aquarium where the tuna and all the animals are dying.
So what mammals are dying?
Now, and mammals and birds.
Yeah, what mammals,
Yoichi? Is going on.
What mammals?
Yep. And this is happening, again, we've seen reports of, people, doctors are finally saying, there has been a rising death rate ever since Fukushima. Every year that there's a lot of, they're seeing inside the people who are dying, many people who are dying, the same problem of coagulation of the the smaller arteries, the smaller blood vessels.
What large, Yoichi?
Same thing we're seeing in the birds. Yes, huh?
What large mammals are dying in the zoo?
Well, they didn't say. They just said there's been a whole spate of deaths among the large animals. Inexplicable, similar.
Inexplicable. My wallet.
Yeah, right. Exactly the point. Is there a kill-off going on in the Tokyo zoos and the aquariums and in the people? The death rate in Japan is going up, including in the Tokyo metropolitan.
You know what's going to happen when the Olympics are held? A lot of these Olympians are going to go home sick and not know it and not show it for a while, and then it's going to show up.
Yes. Well, the buildup is occurring, too, in Tokyo Bay. You understand, that the Tokyo sewage system is the only people who monitor that, and I did the study of the records. It shows, thousands of becquerel per kilogram of sludge coming out of there. The river, it's basically from the rivers that feed the drinking water, and they feed in Tokyo Bay. So the sludge is pulled out, but Tokyo Bay, as I showed you, was very, very radioactive. And so it is building up, and this is where most of the Olympic Games are. The tennis courts, I told you, I got radiation burns. I was there for maybe 30 minutes through a leather jacket. I had a leather jacket, a sweatshirt, gloves on, of course, except when I did breathing. Both forearms, up to my shoulders, but mainly on the forearms. Leather jacket, sweatshirt, shirt, T-shirt, and hat, and still I got radiation burn through all of that. Incredible levels. So it had to be more than just cesium. It's a stew. And the Tokyo Sewage Department only measures cesium, okay? And then I think Dr. Wilcox, he found some study from Gunma, from a water treatment plant in Gunma, sewage, waste disposal plant there. They found iodine, okay, radioactive iodine, which means it's ongoing. They're picking up, the water there is picking up particles of new meltdowns coming out of Fukushima. So, the meltdowns are occurring. And he said, how come there's no other reasons? I told him, because they don't measure for iodine anywhere else. They stopped that after 18 months. Yeah.
How are you going to stop the Olympics?
Well, I think the National Olympic Committees have got to start taking action. This is kind of a joke. The Rugby Federation. Not too many Americans play rugby.
No.
Maybe in Canada. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's an amateur thing.
The Rugby Federation, Tokyo applied to be the host city for the 2022 Rugby International Tourney. Okay.
Oh, they're on a death roll, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and the rugby guys are saying, look, what about your stadium? You canceled your stadium, and we don't have a place to play because it costs so much. Tokyo government refuses to pay for it because they don't have the money. Mm-hmm. This was part of their Olympic bid, this beautiful new Fareed Zechariah. Her stadium design, very spacey. It's just too expensive, but they can't do it. Tokyo's broke, essentially. And it's getting broker, as you know. The Nikkei was hit by this recent stock.
So they're not going to build the stadium?
It's staggering. They said, we're going to use an existing rugby stadium, and it's called the Ajinomoto Stadium. Now, Ajinomoto is a food company. They're the number, in the way they got their fortune, they're the number one producer of MSG.
Ajinomoto. Aspartame.
Yeah, the MSG guys.
Aspartame. They also make aspartame.
Yeah, they put that... Exactly, aspartame, MSG, very related, and they put this stuff in the Japanese beer. Everyone says, I love Japanese beer. Eat it with sushi. I said, the reason you love it so much because you're addicted to the MSG, and the aspartame in there. They're addictive. You crave it. You have a craving for it.
Correct.
This is a company behind this kind of poisoning of the world food supply.
I know Ajinomoto. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't justify having a sports event inside Ajinomoto Stadium. An international sports event. Is this an endorsement or what? Of the poisoning of the world's population? The addiction of the world's population? I know. So. It's all very disturbing, this convergence of things happening in Japan. All these bad practices are now, it's like layer after layer coming together. Amid this nuclear crisis, as they get more desperate, they have to pull out all the other cards, and it shows just how evil the kind of technologies Japan has employed to take shortcuts around the natural life. In a country that's very abundant in agriculture and all that, our agriculture system is weeds, a total wreckage. The countryside is so ugly now. It's just now that all the corporations are talking about growing food indoors with artificial light. So the solution is not to clean up this Fukushima, do what's necessary to stop this. The solution is to keep burying the head further in the sand and then invite the world to come over to see what a wonderful place. On a high-tech agriculture inside warehouses. This is an insanity that has to be challenged, because it is not just killing Japan and the Japanese. It is having devastating effects on Alaska. We've seen stories of the walruses, right, congregating, yeah?
Yes.
No more ice flows in Alaska.
No.
There's no way global warming, a 1 or 2 degree difference in water temperature,
Not a chance.
less than that, in fact, less than 1 degree,
That's
causing the end of all those ice flows. There's no chance. It's chemical, it's tritium, it's Fukushima, the other nuclear power. It's Fukushima that's done this. All the walruses, probably the last year we're going to see walruses, yeah?
You may be right. They're on the way out. Whether it's this year or next or the year after, there won't be any left.
There won't be any left. Their food is, whatever food they do have left is completely contaminated with radiation. They're in a radioactive environment, water, air, land, massively up there. And whales are dying, larger in the sea, they're dying.
30
Walruses are congregating together. And like no other time in history has anyone seen so many walruses together. Last year, this year, it is like a final death rally. It's a rally of a species before they fade out of existence.
They know.
And the cause of that
It's sad.
is human beings. The cause of this is human beings, specifically the nuclear industry, an industry that, unfortunately, the Prime Minister of Japan is completely wedded to, and is completely a supporter of his grandfather's support.
Well, I'm sure they'll put a right nice funeral on for him when he goes.
Well, I certainly ain't. I'm not going to be sending any flowers.
I wouldn't think so. Well, you can cancel my order, too.
It's good riddance. Yeah, good riddance. And one thing I'm happy about is you tried to kill me, but here I am standing and you're dead. You went before me. You laughed last, and I shall be laughing when he's gone.
I'll join you. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's really...
Exactly. And the further tragedy is, where is Prime Minister Harper of Canada, Stephen Harper? Where is President Barack Obama in the west coast of the United States? Alaska is dying. Is really, everything is dying. The people are killed.
I am very... we have to take a break. I was not able to get hold of Dana. He's on another trip, and he's outside of cell range. So can you hang on for the next half here?
Will do.
Okay, We'll be right back with Yoichi as we continue. Fukushima, the end of mankind, is the question of the top story at Rense, and you're invited to read that. Not a stretch at all. We will be right back, so stay there. Okay, top story. Center of headlines, the Fukushima update, which I update every day. Fukushima, the end of mankind, is the title of the story. I haven't read it. I don't have time to read nearly as much as I'd like to, but I'm going to read just a little bit of this and see where it goes. It's written by Dennis Cimino. In the aftermath of the nuclear disaster at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan, it's hard to fathom or describe the environmental damage to the Earth, because it eclipses all prior nuclear accidents by such a huge margin. In the 4 years now since the earthquake caused the breakage of critical reactor cooling apparatus and plumbing to the point where the plants were not able to sustain or maintain the nearly 1 million gallons of water per reactor per minute needed to cool them, the continued exposure to the entire world has carried on, unabated, unchecked. Adequate cooling flow to prevent what is truly a China syndrome was not possible, even had the cooling system at Daiichi survived the earthquake event itself. At Daiichi, where a reactor meltdown of no less than 3 operational reactors, which incidentally were fueled up with MOX fuel, a highly unstable form of nuclear fuel that not only mandates total cooling control but ensures disastrous results if such cooling fails, as was the case in March of 2011 in Japan, we had a situation whereupon these 3 reactors were overheated beyond cooling within minutes. By the time the tsunami hit the plants, these reactors were in very dire condition already, and the fuel had already overheated and breaching their containment vessels to the point of no return. This, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, all happened before the tsunami. So don't think tsunami, think earthquake damage. That's the primary culprit. I have studied literally hundreds of photos of the aftermath, damage to the facility, and come to the conclusion that indeed Unit 3 detonated in a prompt, uncontrolled criticality, a nuclear explosion, and effectively destroyed the spent fuel pool at Unit 4 when it did so. Nuclear expert Arnie Gunderson, in his very sobering video, see below, had stated that it is very clear that statements and reports about the wholesomeness of Unit 4's SFP are out-and-out lies and fabrications, as it would be tantamount to expecting a spaghetti colander to hold boiling water within it. Post-explosion damage. Close-up photographs show massive wreckage from overhead refueling cranes and other equipment, and in some photographs it is crystal clear that the pool was so destroyed that it was impossible to keep enough water in it to cool the fuel within that pool. Add to that the fact that the unwise use of seawater really accelerated the corrosion and breach of the zircaloy cladding of the fuel assemblies themselves in their racks, ensuring that within hours the fuel reached temperatures that in effect guaranteed the breach of the fuel rods within these racks, and absolutely positively ensured that in effect the fuel in this pool was in fact an open-air reactor without any control capability of any kind. And I'll stop there. It's an excellent article.
Well, it's really good to hear this. Actually, it's a more sober estimate, because so many experts tried their best to take Tokyo Electric Power Company, because there are nuclear people and certified nuclear engineers and all that, backed up by a lot of academics and all that, who told us a completely different story, about the hydrogen gas reaction. This fellow who just wrote this article talked about nuclear reactor, which I said that no, tritium gas is not simply hydrogen. There's a nuclear type of fission going on that we have never seen before. It's very hard to, there's never been lab tested and stuff. So therefore, yes, there was these massive meltdowns, and then the reactors are clearly empty because we had these muon, this muon detection equipment. These are cosmic ray detectors, and they couldn't find any, fuel inside. I believe it was reactor 2 that they looked at. So obviously, we had a worst case scenario, and I think people now are admitting, people who went along with TEPCO very patiently for 3 years and contested their findings one at a time, but were willing to still believe. I think people like Arnie Gunderson now realize, as they said, it was one big fat lie. All right, and our worst case scenario, in fact, was not by any means the worst case. It is far worse than what we were seen as the most negative of all, but it's far worse than that. I think everyone.
People did not like.
I think the profession realized that.
Yeah, no, they did not like our view at all.
Yeah, they call us. What do they call us? They call us alarmists. Things like this. They call us alarmists, and but these were reports, and I got word. I told you in the very first report that 8 hours after the earthquake, that a meltdown was starting to occur.
Yep.
And now, like a year and a half ago, they admitted it happened 2 hours afterwards. As this fellow in this new report has suggested, it happened very soon afterwards. Okay, there was a massive water leakage, stoppage of water, stuff turned to steam, and meltdown of some of the rods was already starting. And this was, by Tokyo now, its own admission, something like two hours after. So
yeah,
this was after wading through all this official lies from the government, from Tokyo Electric, and the whole nuclear industry, the IAEA. All of them were lying. Okay, they were lying.
It was a tsunami of lies.
Yeah, it was a tsunami of lies, and we've survived that, and we're here. And at a certain point, we're kind of speechless now because now what? We thought there were things we might be able to do then, which have turned out to be futile. The things that we tried to do, which are not only were they sabotaged, they were deliberately sabotaged by the Japanese government and their paid collaborators in Japan. All our decontamination, the stuff we tried to train people and calls to evacuate people, all of that was deliberately, probably millions and millions of dollars, went into the sabotage. We talked about the lack of aid to whole areas of tsunami-affected areas, earthquake-affected. Not one single bottle of water getting through to the victims, to thousands, tens of thousands of victims. We talked about that. And against this, as you say, tsunami of life. And here we are now watching Tokyo dying. We're watching Alaska dying. We're watching California, Washington State dying. And we don't know how far in. And as I said, these rainstorms are coming into the Four Corners area, just as if Los Alamos and the uranium mines at Four Corners are some sort of electromagnetic attractor for these storms from Mexico, radiation building up in those areas and causing all sorts of other kinds of diseases. That's a very interesting for people deep in them.
I think it's more than just a theory. I think you're correct. We know the jet stream comes up and over and down. This stuff piles up. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. And the jet stream is poked down into the deep south of the United States, that far through the Midwest, deep down, along the East Coast. There's radiation really, into Europe. The Northern Hemisphere has been hammered in the last 4 years and continues to be hit in unexpected ways. We don't really know what's coming next, how the thing is going to mutate. There are new models. And NOAA, for all of its efforts, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, the weatherman, the meteorologists for the United States government, they're not being helpful. They're not being helpful by continuing this cover-up. They should be using a multi-million-dollar arsenal of weapons to be helping us identify what the threat is, rather than deny that there is a threat. And then Jeffrey Immelt, the head of chief. It's really distressing that, Remember the first thing he said, Yoichi? Well, what was the first thing that creep said? I don't mind calling him a creep.
He was going to rebuild Fukushima.
That's right.
He was going to rebuild the reactors and restart them.
Don't worry. I'm going to put them back online.
Yeah.
Idiot.
I wish he would try. I wish he really would go back to those GE reactors. I wish he would stay there for a while. Roll up his sleeves and go to work there and resign as Obama's jobs, the czar of jobs in the United States, more jobs at McDonald's in the United States. But the man is utterly useless as an executive. It's not really clear why GE has this guy at the top. He's still there after Fukushima. The greatest technological failure, which has completely discredited General Electric. General Electric. When you talk to nuclear engineers now, when you say General Electric, they scoff, they laugh. So I think Jeffrey Immelt should take the hint. Resign and apologize and resign and commit the rest of the remainder of his life to doing something to fix this problem. To help help find some solution to this problem. Take all of his stock shares, all of his ill-gotten pay, invest that in a research fund to try to figure out what we can do to stop the constant bleed out of Fukushima. Things can be done. You need a lot of money, and I think there's some things that can be done to slow this thing out, but it's got to be done on a mega. As a mega project, tunnel digging as a storage solution, just like the U.S. I believe the U.S. Isn't the U.S. government digging huge tunnels to store water right now somewhere? I read about that
California, they're digging big tunnels. Yeah,
exactly, for water storage. so that the runoff goes into Japan. They do that under the rivers of Tokyo. There's huge tunnels under the rivers of Tokyo, packed right now with radioactive water. You know, there's massive amounts of water under the rivers of Tokyo in these vast tunnels, okay? Because that prevents the worst from happening to Tokyo if all the water flowed in. Wow. So the use of megatunnels was developed by Mitsubishi IHI Industries as water storage. The Japanese were the first, and I was there in Japan in the 1990s when they started that whole project, because they wanted to prevent floods by using, instead of dams, you use tunnels on the rivers. And so the worst of Fukushima water for Tokyo is actually in tunnels, and yet we're still getting massive amounts of radiation. Tokyo Bay and the water supply is unstoppable. So,
here's another one that will build. Here's another one to build optimism that the powers that be are learning. The headline kind of gives it away. Let me get this loaded here. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC over here, rejects recommendations to require nuclear plant owners to establish plans to address a core melt accident. The NRC rejected recommendation to require plant owners to establish plans to address a core meltdown. This is insane. These people are just begging for more, begging for another Fukushima.
Why does one need a Nuclear Regulatory Commission? I mean, you might as well just save the federal government money. Let the nuclear operators do what they want. Dump their waste in your backyard.
I think pretty much that's what they do.
I mean, you know, because that's exactly, we don't need the so-called regulators who don't do anything but nod their heads when the industry actually has to do something dangerous or risky to the public. You know, it's just not necessary. It's a waste of taxpayer money. It's way better we invest in something like, free balloons every weekend, in every town in America for the kids. Right? I mean, at least someone derives some happiness out of that. You know, I mean, this is an absurdity. If a government like this is so utterly useless, you don't need the government. Just disband the thing. You know, I mean, all it does is waste your tax money. Why have a government if the government is here only to ensure that if there's an accident that you're going to get killed or maimed, your children will be completely genetically mutated? You don't need governments who do this, and you don't need enemies, you have to worry about ballistic missiles in North Korea, Russia, wherever they're coming in from, when you got nuclear missiles right in your backyard that the government is arming and, setting the fuses to. I mean, what? This is just like the Japanese government. Is the American government any different than this recklessness that's happening in Japan from the regulatory and the reform nuclear regulatory commission in Japan, which allowed the Kagoshima Sendai nuclear plant, the 2 Mitsubishi reactors, to go online and then to find out 2 weeks later that the pipes are cracked and it's leaking radiation. They haven't said yet it's leaking radiation, but when the pipes are cracked,
they're still going forward.
And they admitted the pipes are cracked. There was radiation being leaked into the channel there, the Catalina channel. No doubt about it. I found it everywhere. It's terrible for the people there, for the animals there.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
I don't either.
About this kind of government.
Bob Nichols.
It's just like a mind-boggling that they dare call themselves a government and not a bunch of executioners.
Well, you're correct. Bob Nichols writes a weekly called Your Radiation This Week. It's number 19.
Good report.
We just talked to Bob. And here are some... Okay, normal radiation is 5 to 20 counts per minute in most places. CPM. 5 to 20. You can even say 24, 26, whatever. 25 in the middle there. Here's some samples. Billings, Montana, CPM 937. That's 187 times over normal.
That is massively serious.
Okay, Bakersfield, California.
When it goes past 100, you start to have to put little flags up there. Warn yourself, keep an eye on this. But 900 is staggering now.
Okay, Bakersfield, California, 855, 171 times normal. Lincoln, Nebraska, if you think you're safe in the Midwest, 683 CPM, 136 times normal. Tucson, Arizona, you think you're way down south and out of the way, 676 CPM, 135 times normal. Little Rock, Arkansas, we're way east. There's no problem down here in the south. 640 CPM, 128 times normal. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we're cool. This is no problem. Urban City, 600 CPM, 120 times normal. New Hampshire, we're way out of it. There's no way. It stays out west and the south, the Midwest. There's no problem. 572 CPM, 114 times over normal. That's in New Hampshire. Concord, New Hampshire. Texas, 563 CPM. San Diego, 543 CPM, 108 times normal. Indiana, 531 CPM. Spokane, Washington, 517. Dallas, Texas, 504. Miami, we're safe in Miami. Come on. East Coast, Atlantic air currents, no problem. Miami, 500 CPM, 100 times normal. Okay, you get the picture. We put it up every week. Thank you, Bob, very much.
The entire United States, is just covered with radiation.
It's constant.
There is.
And it's bioaccumulating in the soil, in the plants, in the trees, and the animals. Yes.
And more coming in every year.
It's not stopping. Every day, 25 hours a day, it's being pumped up.
It continues. And different kinds of radionucleotides, many of which we do not know. Some of them have massively long half-life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like nearly beyond our recognition now. You got to get really nuclear chemists who really specialize.
Right.
And have big labs that can, really analyze to find out what this threat really is about. What are the half-lives of what's coming, and how is this stuff evolving as it decays? What kind of new stuff are we seeing coming across? And if this Gunma iodine check is any concern, the thyroid issue is not over for young kids. That it can reach the United States in time to affect young kids who are outdoors or even indoor air quality. I don't know what to say. It's unimaginable that the United States government would not do anything to alert its citizens and come up with any kind of strategy to
not one single news conference
and put pressure on Japan. The problem is it is senseless to worry about this ridiculous V-22 base in Okinawa. It is absolutely strategically a ridiculous place there. I mean, it is not much of a force. It's a pinprick to whatever enemy it is. When the threat, the national security threat to the United States is overwhelmingly coming from this meltdown in Fukushima. It will have, by the time we're done in, a couple hundred years, cumulative effect of more than a nuclear strike, It's more than a first strike nuclear against the United States. So this is a genuine national security threat that the national security establishment doesn't seem to be worried about, and I can't understand. Why not? When your country is being irradiated and the population is being subjected to all this deadly radiation. And Japan being an ally of the United States, where at least half the population, if not the entire population, is seriously impacted, by basically, whether it is, let's say, an act of, it is an act of commission. It's not a deliberate act, but it was a deliberate miscalculation. This desire to build up Japan's nuclear program, to do it in secret, to do it in the Fukushima area, and to be very in a rush and sloppy about how they did their technology, the amount of plutonium that was concentrated in that area. So it is, I think there is an act of, there is a crime of commission there related to warfare that backfired and basically is going to cause a destruction of at least half of Japan's population. This is a self-inflicted war event, and for the United States, it is a collateral casualty of this war-related
collateral damage.
It's an act of war, basically. not every war is a deliberate act. Countries do stumble into war. And this is something like a self-inflicted war that's been going on and continues. And so therefore, I do think a massive national security, what I mean by that is extraordinary powers are needed to deal with this crisis, okay? Emergency powers by the executive to go into Japan and demand that, something is going to be done and no more lies, no more delays. We can't delay a solution, temporary solution, any longer. We got to put something in to stop this flow and stop these releases and cool down whatever it is underground. There's got to be temporary measures until a way to dispose of that material or remove that material can be found. At least now, I say temporary storage of everything inside deep tunnels under the Abakuma Plateau, where it is feasible to do that. Japan's got the technology, and most of the land there can be requisitioned by the Japanese government.
Well, pragmatism seems to be finishing last. You just put your finger on another.
Yeah, along with everyone else. People, they're all going into this inferno.
That's crazy.
It is shocking this far along. Nothing has been done. That's what's so shocking. Nothing at all has been done to protect the lives and the health of the humans, of the biosphere, of the North Pacific. Nothing at all has been done except cover-ups, lies.
Amen, brother. Thank you, Yoichi. Talk to you next time.
All right.
Thank you very much. Good night. Yoichi Shimatsu, and that's our Fukushima report for you. Again, tip of the hat to Bob Nichols for his weekly radiation reports. You can see those up the center column and off to the right as well in the other Fukushima box at Rense.com. It's your website for you. Enjoy it, learn from it, pass it around. See you tomorrow.